So hello and a big warm welcome to everyone who's watching or listening. My name's Marion Rose and I'm a Level 2 Aware Parenting Instructor, and I'm so excited to be having the part 2 of the conversation with Sarah Solter. Sarah, you're the daughter of Aletha Solter, PhD, who's the founder of the Aware Parenting Institute, the author of many books, and your mom's website is at www.awareparenting.com. And we've already had one conversation about your memories of growing up with experiencing aware parenting from firsthand from the founder of Aware Parenting. And in this conversation, we were thinking we'd talk more about your experience as an adult and how you see your experiences now as being perhaps a reflection of what you experienced growing up. So welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm excited. Looking forward to talking the second part of our conversation.
Yay. I'm so glad that you're here. I think it's such a wonderful opportunity for parents to, as I was saying in the first one, who often wonder, what on earth is my child perhaps going to experience? What might it be like for them to have experienced this different way of being brought up? So thank you. Do you have general thoughts about your experiences as an adult that you do tend to relate to how you experienced things growing up?
Yeah, I guess the main thing that stands out for me is that I feel like I was really, by being raised this way, I was set up for success as an adult, that it has allowed me to really be more likely to reach my potential, or at least be more on that path. I don't know if anyone actually ever reaches their potential, but and yeah, I feel like having been raised this way, I'm able to really relate to the world with understanding and be aware of my own emotions and know what to do with that, and that I've always, I think, had a bit more than I see in other people, clarity about myself. And kind of like what I want or what I need, or what's important to me.
I love that. I hear set up for success. I hear that real clarity that you have in yourself, that you know what you need, you know what you feel, you have that awareness of what's going on for you, and that understanding, which I think again, it makes so much sense, doesn't it, that if as a child your needs are valued and honoured, such a key part of Aware Parenting, feelings listened to and honoured, that becomes your kind of default, that you do that for yourself, you understand that. So
yeah, I feel like I've always, and other people have commented on this, so it's not just in my head, that I've always been pretty good at really finding balance in my life. Like in college, I had my major, which was computer science, but I took a wide variety of classes because I had a lot of interest, and I was very careful about how many classes I took each quarter to not overload myself. And I never pulled an all-nighter to finish something. And so I feel like I maintained a certain level of balance in college. It was still very overwhelming and engrossing, but maybe more balance than I observed in some of the people around me. And similarly at work, I have always been good at keeping my boundaries, but for many years of working, very good at making sure that I didn't let work slip into my free time. And for many years, I actually only worked Monday through Thursday and had Fridays off, which was like a terrifying thing to ask my employer for at the time because it's so out of the norm. But I asked and they said yes, and it was great. And my manager actually commented multiple times on how I seem to be very well balanced. And so I think that I can definitely attribute that to having been raised with aware parenting.
I love that. And I've got a little, I feel excited because that's often what I tend to say in my writings. I don't know if you've seen, but I often say is, if we, how we respond to our own needs is based on how our needs were responded to. So that need for rest and for, care for our bodies and for listening to ourselves, all of those things. So thank you, because I'm like, oh yes, it really is true.
It is true. Not that I'm perfect at it. Sometimes I'm not aware of my needs or don't meet them correctly, or put someone else's needs ahead of mine. But I think that I've been a lot more skilled at it than other people I've seen.
So glad. Thank you for sharing that. And so again, things that a parent so wants, isn't it, for children to be able to be successful, to move towards reaching their potential, to be connected with themselves, understand themselves, connected with their feelings and needs, but yet still do what they love. I really hear you followed your interests, you do things that you loved. Again, to me, such a core part of aware parenting. So hey. So then the next question we had was, as an adult, do you still express feelings through crying or raging, or has your self-expression taken other forms?
Oh, yeah. Great question. I definitely still cry. I think the only addition to that has been in the past few years, I've discovered more body awareness practices. Yes. So I specifically been working with someone who practices somatic experiencing therapy, which is Peter Levine's work, and she's a practitioner in SE, and an amazing, highly sensitive person who's just incredible at holding safe space. And so from her, I've really learned about kind of tuning into my body and being more aware of what emotions feel like in the body, which has been really interesting and helpful. And I mean, the result is often still crying, but it's like another way to access the emotion instead of going always through the content, through the mental content of what is driving the emotion, to set that aside and see how I'm feeling in the body, and then paying attention to that lets it move, and it allows me to release through crying, usually. And then even more recently, I've actually been getting into insight meditation, which is essentially mindfulness or awareness meditation, and it's essentially the same thing, what I just described, but learning to be the observer of oneself and observing the sensations we experience, observing the thoughts we have, observing the emotions we have. And again, that somehow it allows you to, because I think to release emotions, you have to be feeling it, but you also have to have this little bit of distance from it. And this kind of observing it gives you that distance enough that you can actually let it move and release.
Yeah, I love that. I'd love to respond to a couple of things, if that's right.
Yeah.
I love, I've noticed as well, a lot of people who seem to be drawn to aware parenting also seem to be drawn to somatic experiencing. They seem to be quite very congruent in their approaches. And I love what you say. Again, to me, I like to see that as, in terms of having a part of us that isn't really identified right in that feeling, having that part too. To me, again, I see as an internalization of what happens with children. So for a child, the feeling to be safe, there needs to be an adult there present with them to listen to the feelings. That's what makes the feelings safe to be expressed, rather than they're on their own in the room. And I love that. The way I see it, what you're talking about is, I talk about her inner loving crew. You probably know her inner loving mother, having the part that's holding the loving compassion or the presence, or the part that's upset, crying, sad, whatever the piece is. And again, to me, it's that connection that makes the crying healing, rather than just kind of in it, in a way that perhaps sometimes I think people can cry as adults, but they're still feeling that sense of being alone, or their original memories of being alone with the feeling they're then re-experiencing. So having either someone there with us on the outer who can be present with us, or having that sense of inner presence with the feeling, I find that is what makes the crying healing as an adult. I don't know if that's your experience.
That makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know if I hadn't like thought about it quite in that way. I've been thinking it as in terms of using the phrase holding space, that that what parents do with children with aware parenting is holding that safe space for their child. And what the skill that I've been learning through these body-oriented practices is to hold space for myself. Yeah,
beautiful. It's not, isn't it? It's that internalization, which I do see as aware parenting, as you talked about with your needs, is internalizing those things that you experience as a child, so that you can give those to yourself. It doesn't mean, not still enjoying and needing outer support, but having those inner resources to also be able to do that ourselves. Thank you. I hope you didn't mind me adding.
No.
So we had another question, which was, do you notice that you have fewer control patterns or repression mechanisms compared to people that you see around you, perhaps not brought up with aware parenting and didn't get to express their feelings when they were children?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, which is not to say, I appreciate that you said fewer, because it's not to say that, I think I may have developed some as an adult to cope with some specific situations, maybe where I did at times feel unsafe or something. But compared to other adults I see around me, definitely many fewer. I don't really have, any major addictive behaviors. I've always been comfortable with my body and had positive body image. And I know that's a big one for women, especially, but I never struggled with that.
There's another big, everyone's now going to be flocking to aware parenting. Girls and young women, isn't it? Such a big thing.
Yeah. And in general, I have this sense that I'm not dragging along baggage over my shoulder the way a lot of people are from their childhood. I mean, there's still things that I get triggered on. There's certain patterns that I've developed around certain emotions in certain situations, but for the most part, it's a much lighter baggage than a lot of people have.
Bag, it's a tiny
a little bag. And it's more recent stuff too, right? It's not baggage all the way back from age 3, right? It's maybe there was a situation when I was 25, which was challenging, and I developed a little baggage around it or something. But it's not, I don't think it's the same level.
There's a part of me now that's going, wow, I wonder how that actually feels to feel.
This might be a good time to insert how old I actually am. For people watching. I just referenced age 25 as being in the past. Even though I look young, I am actually 36. So I've actually been out functioning as an adult in the world for many years. I'm also married, right, happily so, which may be reassuring to people to hear. For 13 years I've been married.
Yeah, and happily married still, which is to me.
Yes. Great.
Again, I'm sure so much part of Well, and that was actually going to be one of our questions. Should we go into that question, since we seem
Sure.
to? Oh, well, we didn't really talk about other adults, but relationships. Is there anything you want to say around that, again, in reference to being brought up with aware parenting?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's true that pretty much every other adult that I have a meaningful relationship with who isn't my brother and parents was not raised with aware parenting.
Yes.
And I think that I find myself basically being in the position where I'm able to give a lot of support to other people, to my friends and my spouse, people I'm close to. I'm able to really be the listener, and give emotional support, like be very comfortable with if someone cries with me. I'm not triggered. I, in fact, love it when people cry with me. In fact, it makes me cry out of compassion, but it always makes me feel more connected, actually, if someone is able to feel safe with me in that way. And so I feel like I'm really, I feel really lucky that I get to be here and provide this to the people I'm close to, and maybe, hopefully have a positive impact on them as a result.
Yeah, I'm sure. With your husband, please feel free to say, I don't really want to answer that, but do you, you talked about triggers, or I call them sweet spots, or, things that come up.
I love that term. We were looking for a new term, actually, other than trigger, because we don't quite like that. So sweet spots. Real about that.
Things showing up that are really clearly from the past, showing up in the present in relationships, which I see is how our psyche is designed to heal. Mm-hmm. So please feel free not to, it's not personal, but do you notice perhaps you have less of those compared to maybe friends, or I don't know, is there anything that you want to share around that?
Wait. I'm not sure I quite followed what you're actually asking.
I tend to see that for most of us in intimate relationships, but friendships as well, is where sweet spots, feelings from the past around relationships, around feelings that didn't get to be heard, or around not having choice, or all of those experiences from childhood often then show up in experiences with often partners or friends. Because they're trying to be heard and healed, and it's reminding us in some way of that. And that often shows up a lot, I find, people, because, most of us do have big bags of, big sacks of unexpressed feelings. So, and I'm just wondering if you feel comfortable to share, do you also having the little, the little bag of more recent feelings, whether you also notice that, there are less challenges maybe in terms of that kind of thing in your partnership?
Yeah, I think that there may be less. So I've definitely observed that this happens, and then maybe it comes out particularly in intimate relationships. But I think that I might have fewer sweet spots. I don't have none. I certainly have some, but in fact, one of my sweet spots, interestingly, is related to a topic we talked about in our other conversation, which I shared about my first times that I experienced punishment at school. And in both cases, it was for something that I felt I hadn't done, like that I hadn't had the information, and so it felt very unfair. And I have, as you call, a sweet spot around being not believed or being treated unfairly. Like one time, I returned a library book, but it didn't get recorded, and so then they fined me for it, and I got really upset about that. So I don't know why that happened to become one of my things, but anyway, but the fact that I can like think so clearly of like a specific trigger or sweet spot means I don't think I have like a huge bucket full of them, just a handful.
And also what I hear is that you're really clear, like you really know, that
I know what it's from. Yeah.
Experience for the library, and that was from there, and that you did also get to be heard at the time. Share about that. So having the clarity and having only a handful compared to big
right.
It has to be really hard to go. I don't know, because there were so many, whereas you.
Yeah, that's true. I have clarity. I mean, so it's there, but I know what it's, or I can see that pattern. I don't know. I mean, it may stem from just something in my temperament that that I get particularly triggered on that thing, but I can really see clearly like when it's showed up.
Yeah, and I also, it's something we talked about also in that first one, is also that kind of almost expectation to be treated fairly. I often love, I think that your mum said once, children brought up with this style of parenting, they're not going to be, yes, they're going to be cooperative, but they're not going to be compliant. So they aren't going to be speaking up for unfairness and being treated unfairly, or others being treated unfairly. So it kind of points to that as well, that you.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know if you've thought of that. That makes me feel better about it.
Yeah, like that a value to be valued, the value for being, for fairness and for respect and all those really values for humans and beings. Thank you, Sarah. What other questions do we have? This one. Was there anything challenging about being brought up this way?
Actually, I have an answer for this. I mean, my first thought was like, no, it was great. But I think going back to what we were talking about holding space, for me personally, and I really don't know how this would generalize. I think I got so used to having someone there to hold space for me that for me the challenge has been as an adult in a world where most people are very uncomfortable with emotions and don't know how to hold space, to learn how to hold space for myself and find people that I feel safe with. I do have those skills. For me, that's been a challenge. I think it's still, I mean, I'm learning how to hold space for myself better, but it's hard. I mean, it's so nice to have someone there to hold it for me. and I don't think there's any reason to feel that I have to be completely self-sufficient on this front, but in the world we live in, it's not always easy to be anything but self-sufficient with it. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. And thank you to you, and thank you to Aletha's work, that hopefully the newer generations are going to have that experience less and less, that empathy is becoming more and more widespread and understood, and that people are getting more comfortable with feelings, and that where parenting is spreading and growing and more well known.
Well, thank you to you for doing so much to help spread it.
It's such amazing, important work.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next question. So this one, and you added this one in, so I'm really touched. I'm curious because I maybe speak about this. Why have you chosen not to have children?
Yeah, I added this one in because, I mean, for one thing, I don't have children. For those who are watching, and I don't intend to.
Yes.
And I thought that people might be interested to know why, because I think that it's kind of the opposite of what you'd expect.
Yeah.
Like the most common, I mean, one of the common reasons that people choose not to have children is that they didn't have a happy childhood, right? And they have negative associations with childhood, and so they don't want to have children of their own. Or I think it's very common for people who have divorced parents, especially if their parents divorced when they were older, like teenagers or young adults.
Yes.
And so they saw their family falling apart for a long time. And I've seen statistics that children of who are adults or young adults when their parents divorce are less likely to have children. Anyway, so in my case, it's like, well, I had this great childhood. I have so many nostalgic, fond memories of childhood, and I loved being a child.
Oh,
Um,
I love being a child.
and yet I have chosen not to have my own. And I think before I give the exact reasons, I want to say that I think that being raised with aware parenting is actually what allows me to make this choice with such clarity.
Yes.
And to be very aware of what the right decision is for me, and to be comfortable with doing something that's quite outside the norm.
Yeah. I'm really touched hearing that you're so connected with yourself and what feels right for you, that you're able and willing to really listen to that, even though it is, as you say, it's outside the norm.
Yeah. And the exact reasons are maybe less relevant than what I just said, but I'll try to share them anyway. I think, I mean, so as, well, we mostly talked about this in our other conversation, but I'm very highly sensitive. And I take the job of parenting very seriously and the responsibility, and I see that it's something that takes so much time and attention and focus.
Yes.
And so I think the highly sensitive part is just, I think it would just be very hard. I mean, you're a highly sensitive parent, so you can probably relate, but I am very sensitive to noise and to chaos, and I know that children are naturally noisy and chaotic, and I think that there would just be so many challenges in that, and I don't feel like that's something I want to take on myself.
Yes.
And my husband is also highly sensitive, and so I think that, you know, it would just be a big challenge to manage that.
Yes.
And raise a child. Obviously, it's done, and I'm sure it's done very well by you. And I think that if I had other motivations, other things that I really expected that I would really get fulfilled by having the child, that I could do it.
Yeah.
But maybe that comes to the other piece of the amount of time and attention and focus it takes. And
yes.
I have so many interests. I think I mentioned that in reference to college, and so many things I want to explore and do in this world, and I just don't want to choose to make the raising of a child the main focus of my life.
Which is so amazing. I feel so touched hearing you say that, because again, to me, that is, as you say, that, and what I hear most mothers I hear is because they didn't ever really internalize that piece that we talked about, of really valuing their own needs, and how it becomes so challenging as a parent. I speak to mums mostly, or moms more than dads, but how challenging it is to have not ever experience really that being valued and not valuing it in themselves, and how challenging parenting is. So me hearing you so deeply valuing your needs and what feels right for you, and to deeply trust that and to honor that and to listen to that is, I feel really, really touched. And I'm so celebrating you're listening to yourself in that way. I think it's gorgeous.
Thank you.
And in itself, I don't have any judgment of parents, but I think often that it's kind of that expected thing, isn't it, where you just have kids and that's kind of the thing. And I think often it isn't something that people really, really listen into. Does this actually feel right for me? Is this something that I really want to devote a really big portion of my life to, that is going to affect everything else? And so I really honor you doing that and having the capacity to do that for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely see that, it's so much just a part of what people do as a society, and my wish for everyone would be that they're able to really make a true decision for themselves, and then every child would be so loved and wanted. Yeah.
Lovely. I love that desire, that intention for every child to be loved and wanted. For it to be a really conscious choice, because it is, and especially bringing children up in this way with this kind of paradigm or similar paradigms of parenting, it does require a lot of awareness and time and presence. And it's a lot.
Yeah, that's like, I can't. I know so many people who, return to full-time work after just 2 or 3 months after the child is born. And, if that's what people need to do, of course that's what they need to do. But I personally could not imagine doing that if I had a little 3-month-old baby and leaving them in the care of someone else. And so I know that for myself, if I were to take this on, I would be so focused on it and make that my main job. And so then with the awareness of how I would do it, it's like, well, I don't actually want to choose that for myself. Yeah.
Yeah, so beautiful. Conscious choice. Thank you so much for sharing. I had no idea what you were going to say. So thank you.
Something I've obviously thought about a lot. Yeah, because I'm 36, so I'm getting to the age where, like, if people haven't had kids by now, they're having them. And I'm still startled when I see that most relatively new parents, are younger than me. I'm like, what? Really? Yeah.
Wow, thank you. Did we have any? Oh, we had a last question, which I love, and you seem so apt to finish with this. But I am also going to ask you after this if there's anything else you can say to parents, and maybe also this would be a wonderful one for people who are thinking about whether they want to become parents. It's a wonderful. But yeah, what are you most grateful for around being brought up in this way?
Oh, I don't know if there's like one thing I can think, and I'm most grateful for everything, but I'll try to be more specific. I think I'm going to return to something that we also talked about in our first conversation, which is being highly sensitive. Yes. And I feel like, particularly being highly sensitive, I'm so grateful to have been raised this way, being allowed to have my emotions, and allowed to process the overstimulation. And I'll share again what I shared in our other conversation, which is that the highly sensitive people I know who weren't raised this way are often prone to depression, and I'm not. And I'm just so grateful for that, because I've seen it, and I see how painful and hard it is to live with that. And so I'm just really grateful that I get to be someone who gets to embrace life as a highly sensitive person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So beautiful. And that joy, the joy I'm really hearing, that you get to embrace life. It's not only just kind of functioning or getting by, but to actually really embrace life as a highly sensitive person, and to experience life with that sensitivity.
Yeah.
Gift. Thank you, thank you. So is there anything else you want to say to particularly maybe to parents watching, that you'd like to, I don't know, even a bit of encouragement, or I don't know, something that you'd love for them to go away with, or anything really that maybe jumped into your head that you'd like to say?
I guess, I mean, I partly just want to return to sort of how we started, which is that, like, this, I think, is the best way to help your child become an adult who is able to function really well in the world, because they're going to have, and I feel that I have a certain resiliency and just a certain sort of inner stability in myself that allows me, but if things aren't perfect, to seek out what I need to find the tools to learn the skills to manage my life. And yeah, so it's, yeah, it works.
Works. That's it works.
It works. And every friend of mine who has a baby, which has been a few, I give them my mom's books. That's like my standard baby shower gift. Because I believe that much in this approach.
And that really, to me, is the most ultimate endorsement, isn't it? You were kind of almost the test subjects when you were kind of the guinea pigs, and it works.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Sarah, I want to say thank you so much, because it's really been such an honour and a pleasure. And I remember when I first read your mum's books, and kind of the pieces she shares about the experiences she had in practicing aware parenting with you and your brother, and to get to have this conversation with you now. And I'm passionate about aware parenting. You've probably gathered. Yeah. I feel really inspired, and I can't wait for my kids to dance today, and I can't wait to see them again tomorrow to just listen and be with them. And so thank you, and I'm sure there are many people listening who feel inspired too, and reassured, and all kinds of things. So thank you.
I thank you for setting this up, and I really enjoyed talking to you.
I'm glad, thank you. And again, I want to share your mom or mum's website, depending on where people are listening from the world, but it's www.awareparenting.com, where you probably could have shared it. And she has lots of really amazing books that I really recommend all of, which particularly you mentioned The Aware Baby, Tears and Tantrums, her new book, Cooperative and Connected, Raising Drug-Free Kids, Attachment Play. Have I missed one? I can't remember if I missed one.
Raising Drug-Free
Kids. Yeah, amazing books. And like my go-tos, and I read them all many times. I just think she really has been a trailblazer in the parenting world. And yeah, so thank you to her, thank you to you, and we get to connect again soon. So I'm going to finish the recording. Bye to everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.